Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am Naveen Habib. I manage the Solutions for Congested Corridors program, also referred to as SCCP. It is 1:04 p.m., so we're going to go ahead and get started. I still see some people are joining, so welcome, welcome. Pile in, we're going to go through some housekeeping reminders so that folks can continue to join during that time. I want to clarify that anytime I state we or us during the duration of this workshop, I am referring to commission staff. I will move on to housekeeping reminders. This is what we look like sometimes, not all the time, but Matthew Yozgat is the Deputy Director of SB1 Programming, and I already introduced myself, so I won't do it again. And moving on to workshop logistics. Each attendee is registered with a unique webinar access link. Please do not share this link. It is associated with your individual registration and may result in access issues or confusion during the session. In the webinar control panel, there are two icons, typically at the bottom of your screen. One of them is the raise hand feature, which you can use to make a public comment. Please begin each comment by clearly stating your name and organization. Then use the Q&A little icon that you see at the bottom there to submit written comments. Commission staff will read the comments out loud during the meeting. Again, if you can, please include your name and organization information so that we know who you are. Workshop formats. These are also reminders. Agendas are typically posted up to 7 days before each workshop. I know what you're thinking. This workshop's agenda was not posted until yesterday. We had some technical issues, and that's why we were a little bit delayed. But we did try to email the agenda out to all of the attendees. If you haven't seen it yet, it's posted up on our website now, which is no longer experiencing any technical issues. So please go ahead and check it out. But I will also be kind of sharing what we're discussing at here, so you don't really need it anymore. Presentations and recordings are available after each workshop. I will say that one more time. Presentations and recordings of this workshop will be available after each workshop. So if that is one of your questions, I have answered it today. Everything will be available. It'll be posted online. It's a take-home document, and you can review it at your own leisure as well. Staff will develop recommendations based on discussion and feedback and that we conduct during this workshop, and then previously covered topics will not be revisited unless determined necessary. I'm going to move on to some information and reminders about this program. So the Solutions for Congested Corridors program, or SCCP for short, was established in 2017's landmark legislation, Senate Bill 1. This is a competitive program that funds construction-ready projects to reduce congestion in highly traveled corridors. To be eligible, a project must be included in a comprehensive multimodal corridor plan, also known as a CMCP, and as well as in a regional transportation plan, also known as an RTP. Please note that the SCCP funds only the construction phase of capital projects, and each nomination must demonstrate independent utility, environmental clearance, and a complete, committed funding plan. The program is focused on achieving measurable congestion relief through multimodal community-aligned corridor improvements. Cumulatively, over 4 cycles, the Commission has programmed 33 projects for over $2.5 billion in program funding, of which $1.8 billion are allocated as of the immediate past fiscal year, which was 2024-25. Cycle 4 was a 2-year program with strong demand. We received 19 nominations requesting over $1.2 billion. Ultimately, the Commission programmed 7 projects for a total of $483 million. These projects leveraged $13.5 billion in additional local, state, and federal funds and included zero-emission rail and bus expansions, active transportation safety improvements, mobility hub and technology upgrades, and broader multimodal corridor improvements. Collectively, these projects will create over 180,000 jobs and provide communities with safe and accessible options to bike, walk, drive, and ride transit. Cycle 4 projects represented our shared commitment to build a transportation system that is community-centered, multimodal, and future-ready, which was co-designed with the people who use it every day. As you are aware, since you are joining us today, we are at the beginning of the development of the 5th funding cycle. As you may be aware, Commission program guidelines establish the policy standards and procedures for the development, adoption, and management of its programs. These guidelines also address statutory requirements, incorporate stakeholder input, and include Commission procedures for programming and project delivery. And on to my favorite part. As I remind you all every cycle, this process relies heavily on the discussions we engage in with a wide range of stakeholders. That's you, including local, regional, and state government and transportation planning agencies, private enterprises, non-governmental and nonprofit organizations, community advocacy groups, and members of the public. Last cycle, we workshopped several clarifying changes requested by stakeholders to reduce repetition and redundancy in the program guidelines, particularly those related to application requirements outlined in Part 8, Appendix A of the program guidelines. I also developed a sample application template as a visual example for interested applicants, and I noted that many agencies used it to help organize their submissions. So I'm glad that you found it helpful. Stakeholders also raised concerns about major guideline changes occurring every cycle. In response, we aim to ensure that updates are deliberate, communicated early, and balanced across all cycles so that we can make necessary improvements without overloading our partners with new or amended requirements. I'm going to pause here because that covers quite a bit of program history, information, um, and kind of expectations for what this process looks like. I will wait and see if there are any questions or comments before we move on to the next part. Okay, I don't see any questions or comments or raised hands, so I am going to move on to the next section. I want you to join me in welcoming, actually, so sorry, I skipped this one. I will go back to it really quick. So just a quick reminder, I don't have to go into a lot of details about this particular slide. This is a proposed timeline for Cycle 5 programming. We are at the left side of this particular timeline. Between now and spring 2026, we are conducting program workshops to develop the program guidelines. Then in spring 2026, or a little bit earlier because it's from February to May, and I'll cover office hour details later in this workshop, we conduct office hours where we meet with our different agencies to provide technical assistance or just general guidance on how to develop their project applications. In summer, we expect to present the program guidelines in June of 2026, and then in August of 2026, we expect to adopt the guidelines. Fall and winter is around the time when project nominations are due, usually around November, December timeline. And we again continue to provide technical assistance up until the point that your applications are submitted. Then once you submit your applications, we no longer meet with you to provide any technical assistance because we go into evaluation mode. And then in June of 2027, which is summer 2027, we aim for program adoption, where we present our staff recommendations, and then ultimately the commission chooses whether or not to adopt the program as recommended by staff, which historically is typically adopted. So again, this is a 2-year program period, and we expect to cover fiscal years 2027-28 and 2028-29. Now I will pause again for questions because I had skipped this slide over and see if there's anything that you want to talk about before we move on to the next part of our presentation today. I see no hands or open questions, so I'm going to move things along to join and welcome Bridget Driller, who is the Associate Deputy Director of Planning here at the Commission. Bridget, take it away.
Thanks, Naveen, and good afternoon, everyone. So I will be presenting some slides on the comprehensive multimodal corridor plans, which is quite a mouthful, so you'll hear me refer to them as CMCPs or corridor plans. And under California state law, requires that Solutions for Congested Corridors funding is available to projects that are part of a comprehensive corridor plan. And so the Commission maintains guidelines to provide guidance to lead agencies for what corridor plans could and should look like. So on this slide, you'll see an image of our recently updated corridor plan guidelines. The Commission adopted updated guidelines last December. And what I'll note for the group is that we really focused the guidelines update on pulling in the latest and greatest resources for lead agencies. There are not significant policy changes in the guidelines from the 2018 version. Next slide. So the 2025 guidelines apply for plans that have been initiated prior to December of 2025. So for plans that are currently in process that were initiated before then, they can also choose to rely on the 2018 guidelines. And similar to previous cycles, we ask that lead agencies fill out a self-certification form to certify that their plan complies with the Commission's CMCP guidelines. Next slide. All right, so as I mentioned, the approach that we're taking for the 2026 program will be similar to how we've done it in previous cycles. We will be proposing minor language changes, mostly to just make sure the language is consistent with what is in our quarter plan guidelines. And when the draft guidelines are shared, you're welcome to review that section and provide feedback. I do think that this is my last slide, actually. So I will pause to see if there's any questions. We kept it short because not a lot is changing in this section, but we do always hear a lot about quarter plans, and they're really important to the program. So any questions on CMCP?
I don't see any raised hands or any questions. Wow, we are a very shy group today. I am appalled. We always have questions about CMCPs.
Well,
I
hopefully
will.
I have just answered them over the years.
I like to think so. That's how I will take it. But again, thank you so much, Bridget, for the presentation. If you don't mind staying on. Oh, there we go. Questions are coming
We have
in.
a
Yay.
couple.
We do. So I will start with the first one. I've got a couple of questions from Luke McNeil Caird. I think I'm butchering your name. I apologize. But he or they want to ask, will old SCCP still qualify or old CMCPs still qualify? Bridget?
Sure. So we do recommend that agencies reevaluate their plans every 4 to 5 years. That can be as simple as just reading through the plan and asking, is this still relevant for my region? So we do not have a specific requirement for how old a plan can be, as long as it aligns with the Commission's guidelines, then we are okay with that. And Naveen, do you want me to take the next question too, or are you going to
Yes,
put it in the chat?
I will put it in the chat as well, but go ahead and take it, Bridget.
Sure. So the other question is if there's a link to the self-certification form. That is part of the Solutions for Congested Corridors program guidelines. So you can see what we did in the 2024 cycle on the Commission's website. And then when the draft 2026 guidelines are released, you'll see it again there. Is that the right answer, Naveen?
That is the correct answer, and I put that into chat as well. If you go to our program webpage, the 2024 guidelines are posted online, and I'm linking them in my response as well. If you go down to Appendix B, you'll see the form there.
Yeah, and Naveen, if I could just say one more thing, which is that, if you have any questions about a specific plan, I'm always happy to chat about that offline. So you're welcome to reach out to me or Naveen. And I will be staying on this call in case any other questions come up later.
Great. I don't see any other raised hands or open questions. but we will move it along to the next part of the program. But if you do have any questions or would like to revisit any other part of the presentation so far, including asking Bridget any specific questions while we have her, please feel free to raise your hand or submit a comment or question in the Q&A panel. Okay, so you may recall that we were asked to implement a CAPTI strategy in CAPTI 2.0. This was strategy 2.4, which I will read off of the slide right here, which said exactly what it says here. Update the Solutions for Congested Corridors Program, or SCCP, guidelines to target a VMT, which stands for Vehicle Miles Traveled, neutral suite of investments through continuing existing practice and guidelines to prioritize projects that reduce VMT. The solutions, so our proposed change is to include that language and that guidance within our program guidelines. We are proposing to put that in Part 5, Section 18 of the Solutions for Congested Corridors Program Guidelines for 2026 under Programming Funds. I will read the black text, which is what we have right now, and then I will also read the additional text that we are proposing to add there. So I'll begin with the black text, which says the Solutions for Congested Corridors program will be developed consistent with the annual amount of funds available for the Solutions for Congested Corridors program. There are no regional guarantees, minimums, or targets for this program. All nominated projects will be evaluated based on the evaluation criteria as specified in Part 4, Section 17. The Commission will not program more than one half of the funds available each year to projects nominated exclusively by Caltrans. Now the text that we are proposing to add in red, which says, additionally, consistent with Commission Resolution G2531, and there is a link embedded here, the program will target a vehicle miles traveled neutral suite of investments by continuing existing practice to prioritize projects that reduce vehicle miles traveled. And that concludes the additional sentence that we wanted to add, which incorporates strategy 2.4 as written in CAPTI 2.0. I'm going to pause here to see if there are any questions or comments about this proposed addition. And while we're waiting, I would also like to add that, as always, this is a gentle reminder for agencies to continue to ensure that all the metrics are reported accurately in their corresponding project applications. Very, very quiet bunch today. I'm going to start telling you really bad dad jokes in a little while if I don't see you all kind of piping up to have conversations with me or just ask weird questions about TV shows you're watching lately. All right, so oh, there we go. We have a question. Jeannie Ward-Waller from Fearless Advocacy. Thank you, Jeannie, for your question. It says, will there be any other changes to the scoring of applications in response to this CAPTI action? Matthew, did you want to take that one live?
Yeah, thanks, Naveen. I would be happy to, and thanks, Jeannie. Um, so no, on the surface, there will be no adjustments to how congested corridors projects are evaluated. Based on the CAPTI 2.0 language, it's asking the program of projects or the suite of projects, which we ultimately consider, for instance, in cycle 4, I believe we programmed, don't quote me, Naveen, 8 or 9 projects in SCCP for just under $500 million. So the CAPTI 2.0 action, which commissioners committed to by their resolution G2531, considers that entire program of projects as being VMT neutral as a target. So I'll reiterate, it is not a requirement, it is a target. But to honor the CAPTI 2.0 action, while we will not be adjusting how projects are scored, this will be a consideration that is made once applications are scored. So for instance, if you notice the other language in this section discusses how funds are programmed consistent with other commission, I should say program requirements. For instance, All nominated projects will be evaluated based on their criteria. The commission will not program more than one half of funds available to projects exclusively nominated by Caltrans. So think of this as like a final filter or a final consideration. If the commission ends up with a list of projects that evaluated well, and that list of projects overwhelmingly induces demand, this CAPTI action would come into play and give us an opportunity to reconsider that final list of projects. And again, it is asking for a target. It is not asking the commission to force a VMT neutral suite of projects, but if you look at the description of the CAPTI 2.0 language, it does suggest or offer that it's continuing our priority for VMT reducing projects, which was a CAPTI, I guess I can refer to it as CAPTI 1.0. But the initial CAPTI document did uh, did in turn put the commission in a position to adjust how we evaluated projects by prioritizing those that are VMT reducing over those that are not. So in that sense, this is a continuation of that effort. And I understand that MTI was contracted with CalSTA to perform an assessment on VMT for cycle 3 selected projects. Cycle 3 was nearly determined or determined to be nearly VMT neutral. Cycle 4 is currently under consideration, and so this is in line with that effort. So that is a really robust way of answering your question, Jeannie, but I do want to simply to answer your question, no, it does not adjust how applications are evaluated. This does not adjust the evaluation criteria, but it is absolutely a consideration made before projects are recommended for commission approval.
Thanks, Matthew. No follow-ups there. I will move on to the next question we have from Mariana Puentes Flores. What will the application process look like this time around? Will it be a multi-level application like this past one? Mariana, I'm not sure what you mean by a multi-level application like this past one. I,
Nav- Naveen,
yeah, go ahead, Matthew.
I think I might be following Mariana. If you would like to clarify verbally, feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you. But Naveen, I have a feeling she may be referring to the Caltrans nomination process through CSIS as one layer, and then projects getting to the commission for evaluation as a separate level, if that makes sense. So if I'm presuming that that's what is being asked, my understanding is that if you are interested in a partnership with Caltrans in the Solutions for Congested Corridors program. They are currently soliciting applications for partnership. You should be reaching out or contacting your district office, your Caltrans district office about partnering. I know projects are currently being considered through the CSIS process. Um, for a Caltrans nomination, but ultimately that process, that level is underway. And then, as Naveen mentioned, or maybe we'll eventually get to, with her timeline for this commission's Solutions for Congested Corridors process, we're expecting to do a call for projects at the August commission meeting of this year, 2026, and seek applications to be due a few months later. So the Caltrans level or layer is underway right now.
Thanks, Matthew. I think so. I wanted to clarify, Mariana did text us and say that that is exactly what she was asking, so you covered her question. Any other questions or comments about this item specifically or anything we've covered so far? Okay, seeing none, I will move on to the next slide. So office hours are intended to provide applicants with meaningful project-specific guidance before nominations are due to us in next fall. They are most effective when you use this time to ask substantive questions and clarify issues early, rather than waiting until debrief sessions after we've already awarded nominations. Our goal is to support strong, complete submissions. And while watching your beautiful project slideshows is fun for us, it is ultimately not useful for you. In debriefs, in these past project debriefs, after we programmed projects, we heard insightful questions that would have been, I think, far more impactful had they been raised during office hour sessions, because those upfront conversations can genuinely influence the strength of your nomination. So I am asking point blank this time around to use this time intentionally and ask those real questions now. There are no bad questions. It's a good time to clarify something that we've been doing forever, and it's a great time to also clarify something that is a new addition to the guidelines this time around, because the answers will still matter as long as they're provided before you submit your project nomination, because after that point, we can't meet with you and provide technical assistance because, again, we go into evaluation mode. So, office hours will be available from February through May of 2026. A scheduling form will be shared with you soon. When signing up, please remember to specify which program manager you would like to meet with and select one project per meeting request if possible. The idea is that we want to support you effectively, and so that scheduling separate appointments for separate projects allows us to help focus our conversation on each project individually, even if you're submitting multiple projects. That is, however, not to say that you cannot request to meet about multiple projects in one meeting. Just know that it does feel rushed and it does get to be a little complicated to go through a really refined discussion during that time. Sessions may be booked for 30, 40, or 60 minutes, depending on the depth of discussion that you plan to have or questions you plan to seek. I want to reiterate that while we really do like those PowerPoint decks you share with us, I recommend coming equipped with a fact sheet or something simple that you can talk about. If you have funding plans tend to be the most perplexing part of this equation for most projects. So typically the questions we receive, if I were to say a frequently asked questions list for office hours, always tends to be focused around funding commitments. So maybe have those funding commitments very clearly stipulated on a sheet so that we can all walk through them together, and we can kind of help work through any confusions or questions you might have regarding funding specifically. Aside from that, any other questions that you have, if you can send them to us before an office hour, so we can prepare to address those queries, that's always really helpful as well. I have a question in the chat from Shelly Kwan. It's nice to see you, Shelly. So, how will you decide which high-ranking projects get funded versus not funded in a situation where the initial suite of investments is overwhelmingly not VMT neutral? I will also defer this one to Matthew, but before I do, I looking back at past cycles for SCCP, I don't see the pattern and the trend that we've noticed with this particular program is we are trending towards VMT neutrality slate of projects anyways. I mean, we have overwhelmingly received more multimodal project applications cycle over cycle, which strongly focus on active transportation, safety investments, technology upgrades. Even the on-system ones are kind of focused around those subject areas, transit only lanes, bus boarding islands. A lot of it is transit and rail infrastructure focused. So I don't know if this hypothetical is like a realistic expectation of a hypothetical, but I will let Matthew address the actual question if the hypothetical were real.
Uh, I'll say this is a very good question. I appreciate that folks are interested in exploring how this will be in practice if it comes to fruition. But to be quite honest, I know we don't have a crystal ball, but Naveen hit it on the head. The first cap tie action for the Solutions for Congested Corridors program really gave us an opportunity to ask for and kind of put a thumb on the scale of seeking projects that were more multimodal projects that included VMT mitigations if they did have widening or increasing aspects. And if you look at the evaluation criteria that the commission currently employs for cycle 3 and 4, there's a lot of criteria in there that lift up projects that have minimized VMT or negative VMT. I'm not going to suggest that projects that induce significant VMT are not competitive in certain criteria, but I don't want to predict or assume that a situation where the most competitive projects don't end up being when you put them together a suite of projects that induce significant demand uh, to the um, to the highway infrastructure. But what I will suggest is if we did have to employ a mechanism of selecting projects that were high performing and induce significant demand, then we would go to some of the other mechanisms by which we have reserved our ability to prioritize certain projects. So instances such as community benefits will become a very important aspect, or uh, projects that do not promote community harms, projects that demonstrate a geographic balance across the state of California. So there might be certain mechanisms that we have to employ that are built into the Solutions for Congested Corridors program already, that would assist us in ensuring that we're not um, recommending 9 projects that are all inducing significant vehicle miles traveled over 20 years. Um, but at the end of this, I do want to suggest that the new language in the guidelines that we're proposing, which is still draft, so I do invite any feedback on what Naveen presented today. You can provide feedback to us in writing. If you would like to schedule a meeting and discuss with Naveen and I, we're happy to meet with you. Um, this is not final language. This is our first attempt at putting language out here to eventually make its way into draft guidelines. But CAPTI 2.0 asks for the commission to target a VMT neutral suite of projects, not land on or require the commission to do that. So again, I think the scenario that Shelley you pose is a hypothetical. I do agree with Naveen. I don't know how likely that scenario will be. Um, but I think uh, we have a couple strategies to help us prioritize projects if that ends up being the case.
Thanks, Matthew. I have a few questions, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the first one from David Melko. Our region includes multiple corridors. Can a single regional SCCP application combine a suite of priority VMT neutral projects from each corridor? I would say in short form, the answer is it depends. And I think you would benefit from discussing it during office hours specifically with us, because while we've had projects in the past that do incorporate or touch multiple corridors, there's a very specific strategy and solution being offered with the project or projects that are proposed to cover the multiple corridors. So it's kind of hard to give you a yes or no answer here without knowing more information about the specific project that you are addressing. Hopefully that helps, David, and we can maybe see you in office hours, but feel free to come off mute, raise your hand, and we can come off mute and have a discussion, or follow up with the question in the chat, and we can answer that live too. Next question is from Marshall Ballard. How do rural counties compete for VMT reduction focused prioritization, especially when the RTPA is short for Regional Transportation Planning Agencies, doesn't have land use authority or housing authority? Meanwhile, RTPAs, of course, are working with their member jurisdictions to provide comments on all proposed developments and rezoning. So how do they compete for the reduction focused prioritization if they're a rural county, essentially is what I'm
Yeah,
seeing the question being.
yeah, and I mean, I'm happy to. I think I understand where this is
Yeah.
coming from. Thank you for the question, Marshall. This is a very good question. Um, so if this is a reference to the new CAPTI 2.0 action, I do want to clarify that projects themselves do not have to be VMT neutral or VMT reducing. Projects themselves can still compete, and I would encourage all of our prospective applicants to look at our evaluation criteria. As I've mentioned several times, the new CAPTI 2.0 action that we are um, integrating into the guidelines is not adjusting how projects are evaluated. Now, with that said, a VFT neutral suite of projects, which is the whole $500 million program of projects, that still implies that there can be some projects that are inducing demand. There will be other projects that are reducing demand, and I'm referring to demand for single occupancy motor vehicle driving. Um, so this is not a prohibition on projects that would induce VMT. This is also not suggesting that projects that induce VMT would no longer be competitive. And because you mentioned rural jurisdictions, rural projects, obviously, and I know that there are several different ways of modeling and calculating for VMT created from transportation infrastructure projects. But I can say that the VMT created from a rural on-system widening project is not going to be as significant as the VMT created by an urban, heavily populated jurisdiction presenting the same exact project that would be widening the system. So there are some comparisons that can be made. There are some offsetting, but I would not suggest that rural projects that may be seeking to compete in the Solutions for Congested Corridors program, um, would be out of the question if there is a level of positive VMT created over 20 years. But as Naveen mentioned with the last question that was asked, if you have some ideas and you're coming from a rural jurisdiction, um, I would already encourage you to be working with your Caltrans district office. Um, if you are interested in a Caltrans partnership, otherwise, please take us up on the office hours concepts that Naveen has perfectly on the screen in front of us, and we would be happy to discuss that with you further.
Thanks, Matthew. I don't see any follow-up questions in the chat, so I'm going to give it another couple of minutes to see if anybody has anything additional to add. Actually, while we're waiting to see if anybody wants to add something, I can move us along to, um, there is a question from Tyler Wunsch. Where is the landing page for the office hours? So thanks for asking, Tyler. Like I said, office hours will be available from February through May. So typically we launch the form towards the end of January. Currently, we have our commission meeting coming up in January, so we are trying to prioritize all materials related to the meeting for posting online. And we plan to share the office hours forms during that time as well, so you have access to all of that. Again, we tend to send out all of this information, and that actually parlays really well into my next slide, which is we're entering the closing area. So, quick recap, we covered all the information typically we address at the first program workshop, which is a recap of the program, our immediate past cycle, changes we made in the immediate past cycle, what this upcoming cycle looks like, what the funding fiscal years will be, what the process will be, and the timeline. So next steps are essentially upcoming program workshops for Solutions for Congested Corridors program and other SB1 programs, and any office hours form will be announced via email to the Commission's entire distribution list and posted online on the Commission's website and each of the program pages. If you are not on the distribution list, you may contact the Commission clerk, which is Douglas Remedios, and request to be added. You can find his information on the Commission's website under the Contact Us page, and he will be more than happy to add you to our distribution list. Or, as always, you can reach out to me, your friendly program manager, and I would be more than happy to parlay that request onto our clerk. So if there are any other questions or comments, feel free to throw them in the chat. I know that this was a little bit of a shorter workshop. The first one typically tends to be because we do cover a lot of information from previous cycles and what's to be expected in the upcoming cycles. One of the key subsequent topics for the next workshop that we plan will be about the feedback that we have received from all of the all of the evaluations that we did. So these are debrief sessions we hosted with you specifically, debrief sessions we hosted with the evaluators and kind of the feedback they provided, which I heard from a good chunk of you last time how helpful it was for you to know what evaluators did or did not find useful as part of your application. So I've put together kind of a short summary that I can walk you through during our next workshop. So we will cover all of that fun stuff next time. And then also address any kind of thoughts or feedback that you have about the guidelines. We made quite a few clarifying changes in the last cycle, which I covered earlier during this workshop. So it was your first time reviewing those guidelines after they were very much cleaned up. So if there are any comments or feedback about what worked, what didn't work, or what you would like to add or amend, please reach out to us. You can always email me directly. You can call. You can send a carrier pigeon. I'm happy to respond to you in any way, shape, or form because I know you're not as shy as you appear to be in our workshops. So reach out. Reach out. Any ideas are welcome. We are happy to have a discussion, a meeting, a call, and we want to see you during office hours. We're excited to share the form with you. We've updated the form as well, so it makes it easier for you to request office hours and address any questions that you may have related to your projects. I am now going to stop talking at you. Tyler, yes. See, Tyler is my people. Tyler understands my humor. He just commented, carrier pigeon in flight. I will be waiting. I prefer doves, but if pigeon is the only thing you have access to, I'll take it. Totally fine. Um, but I will stop talking at you. And if you have any questions, comments, or feedback about anything we've shared or discussed, or you just want to pepper Matthew with all of the questions you've always wanted to ask him, this is your time. It's your shot to do so. I am shocked that people aren't lining up to ask Matthew questions. It's my favorite thing to do. I see a raised hand. Tyler, I'm going to unmute you. You should be able to talk. You can unmute yourself and talk.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. This is awesome. It's the first time I've joined, and it sounds like you all have a long-standing relationship with these workshops. And I think the bigger question I have is as we're seeing autonomous vehicles and different use cases and really transit being a very beneficial partner and some even having their own, whether it's with their own services or sort of white labeling a company like Via, and sort of how this market is quickly arriving in so many cities, not only this year but next year and the year after. Is there sort of a more innovative approach around how different collaborations can apply for funding and how maybe the business models of yesterday can be innovated and I guess is that potential equal extra points or just wondering how sort of the strategy, the VMT angle, but then also the current innovative um, applications or sort of yeah scored here.
Sure. So I would direct, so every time we have one of the reasons why I cover a lot about the program history in each of our subsequent workshops, and I typically start with that in any program workshop, is because we do have a lot of new attendees join, typically at the start of each cycle. So one of the things I encourage everyone to go back and do, whether they're new or returning participants, is to go and explore the most recently adopted program guidelines. I just dropped them in chat earlier, but I'll drop it again so that everybody has access. Under that, if you go to part 3 under eligibility, We cover eligible applicants and eligible projects in quite a bit of detail. SCCP is easier, or Solutions for Congested Corridors program is easier because the list of eligible applicants is fairly short and enumerated, but it includes quite a few people. So it includes a regional transportation planning agency, a county transportation commission, Caltrans, or any authority responsible for preparing a regional transportation improvement program as specified under Government Code Section 14527. So it's pretty broad, but also specific all at once. And we kind of go through and set out all of our funding restrictions and matching requirements. In terms of scoring, this is my favorite talking point every time we begin guidelines development, as I think some of my returning partners will know. I'm looking at you, Shelley Kwan, you know. We don't do scoring in SB1 programs. We have a project rating process. You can go and find that again under the program guidelines. It's listed under eligibility, under the evaluation section, I apologize. And we have a rating process. So typically all of the evaluation criteria that we have are rated as either high, medium low, or low. And then the highest rated nominations are programmed for funding. As Matthew was talking about before, there is not any one criteria that is weighed more heavily than the others, except for one, which is the main purpose and the bread and butter of this esteemed program, which is our congestion evaluation criteria. So that's possibly the heaviest weighted criteria that we have. You can find that under Part 4, Section 17 of the guidelines under evaluation criteria. 17.1 specifically touches congestion evaluation criteria and is split into two parts: extent of congestion and proposed solution. So really the meat and the brunt of how you qualify in this program beyond the screening requirements and all the application kind of housekeeping type of things is this section where our applicants really shine and talk about the different corridors that they have, the different options that they've explored, and how they've chosen to address the issues in that corridor. So hopefully that gives you a breadth. I'm not sure how to address specifically business development. That tends to be an internal process for each RTPA, or Regional Transportation Planning Agency, their MPOs, which are Metropolitan Planning Organizations, and then all the different local agencies and partners that they coordinate with, and the different transit and travel agencies as well. I see your hand is raised, so I think you can still unmute yourself, Tyler, if you wanted to add anything to your comment, but if I address your question, I think I can just stop there.
No, yeah, you're good. Thank you. I just dropped what you said B in the chat too. Not a follow-up question. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Oh, did we lose you, Tyler? Sorry about that. I don't know if you're gone, but if you have any follow-ups, just let me know. I see some additional questions in the chat, so I'm going to go in the order that they were received. The first one is from Luke again. What is the best restaurant in Sacramento for the upcoming CTC meeting? I am so glad you asked. We will be in the Roseville area. There are many fantastic restaurants, but if you like Mexican, which I mean you must if you live in the state of California, go to Nick's Taco. It's fantastic. Make reservations ahead of time, though. They look at you kind of funny when you show up without a reservation, even when they're not busy. Go for it. But if you want a greater list, I'm happy to email you after this, Luke, because I have a list. I have a whole list. I will follow up with Mariana Puentes Flores. I'm still learning this grant world. I don't even know what to ask half the time, if I'm being honest. But taking notes from my amazing team, who are all a lot more seasoned than I am, I'll be more prepared with questions when I better know what to ask. Mariana, this is a space that we specifically create and host just for you. You can literally ask us anything. We are more than happy to answer. As you just saw, I'm happy to answer restaurant recommendations as well. I think I give good ones. But that said, I think to more seriously address your point, I think it's fantastic that you're new. I think you have joined a really cool community of people who are willing to learn and grow together. So please use us as a resource, use your fellow agencies as resources. People come with all sorts of questions and comments during these sessions, and we're happy to address them as we get them. And I think it's fantastic that you have an amazing team. I'm sure they're very, very happy to have you on board. I have one follow-up question. Oh, Mariana, again. I was going to ask what tips you have for someone who is still fairly new to all of this. Lots of tips. One of the main ones is feel free to ask questions as much as possible because that will help you figure out how to develop your project application. But before any of that, I strongly encourage you to go through our program website. So if SCCP is the program in which you are interested in competing, we painstakingly update all of our program web pages. We are very proud of this, especially at the Commission, but even more so, especially in the Senate Bill 1 programming side of the world. We love telling you what we're working on, and we love keeping everything updated. So if anything isn't updated, reach out and let us know. But if you go to our program web pages, literally everything you need to know about our entire program is housed there. We have these drop down menus that you can see when you go down, scroll down to the bottom of our pages. For every single cycle that we have programmed so far, we have workshop information specific to each program embedded on each program site, as well as the Commission's workshops page where all of the program workshops are listed. We have background information, statutory language, and of course, we have the program archive. And on the SCCP side of things, every single workshop, every single recording that we have had for the past however many cycles that we've been doing this online specifically, everything is on there. So you can go through and really have an enriching learning experience about the program if this is the program that is under your charge of things. So hopefully that's helpful. And then if nothing else and you have a little bit of time to spare, and you don't have too much time to go through the website, pick up the latest edition of the program guidelines. It includes every single thing you need to know about the program, how to compete in it, and how to correspond with us accordingly. Hopefully that has been helpful, Mariana. I'm happy to chat with you one-on-one if you want to meet some time and welcome you to the community. We had quite a few new entrants last cycle as well, so it was a fun experience for everybody. And please always feel comfortable to ask us questions. I Oh, Aaron. Aaron Slichter has asked me for a dad joke for the road. So prepare yourselves. It's not going to be fun, and you will be deeply disappointed. But here we are. What did one wall say to the other wall? Meet you at the corner. I enjoy really bad comedy. If you are a dork like I am, I think you will too, and we'll get along very well. And if you have any great dad jokes, feel free to throw them up in Q&A. I'm happy to read them out loud. I'm going to move on to Jeannie Ward-Waller's comment. Do you plan to consider CSIS scores in project selection next cycle? Matthew is our resident CSIS expert, so I will parlay this question on to him.
Yeah, thanks, Daveen. And thanks, Jeannie, for the question. I know we've been getting this a lot, and I want to make sure I can clarify. So your question is, will we be considering CSIS scores for those that may not be aware on our workshop what CSIS is? CSIS is the Caltrans System-Wide Investment Strategy. CSIS is a process that Caltrans uh, created and stood up. They're undergoing some adjustments to the pilot that Caltrans utilized in our Cycle 4 programs. CSIS is a process that gets Caltrans a determination on projects to submit for federal discretionary programs or a few of the commission's programs, one being Solutions for Congested Corridors program, or how to select projects for some programs that Caltrans administers. So to answer your question, Jeannie, the commission does currently consider CSIS scores. CSIS is an effort to get to a Caltrans nomination, which is how a majority of projects are submitted to the Commission for Solutions for Congested Corridors program and the Trade Corridor Enhancement program. So in that instance, when we receive Caltrans nominations, they're typically prioritized. In Cycle 4, they were provided to us in a two-tier structure, Tier 1 projects and Tier 2 projects. So in that instance, even getting through the CSIS process means that their CSIS scores are considered because we have a partnered application with Caltrans for our evaluation process. I have a feeling you are wondering or digging in on whether or not the CSIS scores themselves will be considered. And the answer to that question is uh, one of the ways that CSIS is evaluated by Caltrans is along metrics such as program fit and CAPTI alignment. Um, Program fit is based upon the commission's evaluation criteria for solutions for congested corridors and trade corridor enhancement program. So a lot of the metrics that are fed into program fit are the same criteria that the commission is evaluating based on ours. So there's a lot more overlap um, than not between the CSIS process and the commission's evaluation process. But in terms of actually taking a Caltrans CSIS number for a specific metric and us using that in our evaluation process, the answer is no. We are not considering taking CSIS scores and weighting them in our consideration process. And the answer is pretty simply, we do not require projects to undergo the CSIS process to be evaluated in Solutions for Congested Corridors program. Caltrans is not the only eligible applicant in the Solutions for Congested Corridors program. So if we were implementing a way of using CSIS scores in our evaluation process, it would be inconsistent with how all projects are considered, which do not require a Caltrans nomination or to have undergone CSIS. So CSIS is considered in many different ways, but we will not be utilizing CSIS numeric scores in Solutions for Congested Corridors program.
Thanks, Matthew. I have no other questions or formidable dad jokes awaiting in my Q&A category. So I will wait here. It's 2 p.m. It's 2:01 p.m. actually. So if you want the rest of your Friday afternoon back, I'm happy to let you all go and stop holding you hostage here. Although I do like hanging out with all of you, even the quiet ones. I see you. I see Kenny Marie. I see you, Kenny Marie. Um, well, it was great seeing all of you. If there are no other Actually, I do want to read this one out loud because it's not truly a workshop until Sarkis Kachek speaks up. And Sarkis just put into the chat, what is the best way to store dad jokes? Well, I am so glad you asked, Sarkis. There are these wonderful little things that we hold in our hands. They're tiny little supercomputers and they have a notes app. I recommend you take screenshots and or text them to your friends. And that way you have the joke and they have the joke too. A database. That's the answer. Oh my God, it was a dad joke wrapped up in a question. I love this. A database. Wow, Sarkis. I think you win. We have such winners. So many good ones. All right. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, find us at the January Commission workshop that's coming up real soon. We're always excited to see all of you, and then we will post about the next program workshop and let you all know when that is as well, and some key topics that we'll be addressing during that time as well. But in the interim, if you have any questions or any specific items that you would like to see addressed in the guidelines, please reach out, call, email and let us know. Our contact information is included on this slide. It's also on our website. And thank you for joining us. We wish you a wonderful weekend and lovely afternoon, and I'm sure we'll see you shortly. Bye, everybody.